What are we
Well,
talking about today?
I wonder what people can actually do themselves in terms of like, we talk about this idea that, we obviously in the industry, me on the periphery, you guys are right in the center of it. But I mean, what can ordinary people do? Because that's what keeps coming back to me. Like, all right, it's all very well you talk about sustainability, but what can I do about it? And and I think that it's worth the conversation because there must be something ordinary people can do about this that doesn't just mean doing a bit of recycling because we all know that you're not going to save the world by not using plastic straws.
So I had to think about this, and I think I think you got to start off with what actually happens in the home, right? So quite a lot of the time, you can't, your crockery and cutlery are going to stay the same the whole way. But one of the things that we do a lot is a lot of cleaning products. So I've come across this product, or I say I come across this. My partner came across this product called Smol, which is a bundle of sustainable washing up liquids, dishwasher tablets, laundry tablets, basically all the stain removers, all-purpose cleaners, things that are made sustainably and packaged and then delivered to your home. It's like there's a home bundle that you can try, and basically it's delivered to your door, and you can get a plan that you can choose depending on the amount of ingredients that you have. And then there's sort of like there's a refill for the cleaners. There's a single tablet which can be added to water, and there's loads of bits and pieces that can actually help make it um, more effective, sorry, more sustainable. They have this whole range of products. And the other thing that we can look at is toilet roll and kitchen roll. So you must have heard of Who Gives a Crap or Naked Sprouts. So
Isn't
they
that are
are
they using bamboo on there or something?
bamboo, and Naked Sprout uses recycled paper.
Hmm.
Um, and these are, yes, they are slightly more expensive than your traditional. But what you're getting is a sustainable source of paper that's delivered in a box rather than in plastic. There's no plastic around it, and it's compostable and recyclable, and no trees were killed in the making of this toilet roll.
And you get a fuzzy feeling when you wipe your bottom.
That may be the no, I think they're quite soft actually.
I was
So
thinking about, I do feel very holier than thou because I've not killed a tree when I wipe my bum. But there we go.
I
there's
mean,
as
there
an
are other ways around it.
I know.
In Asia, they have a spray that you can spray down your bum bum.
Hmm.
Would you guys just
Well,
hold?
I guess
I've just got to hold. Sorry.
only a few, not a huge amount of the world actually uses toilet paper. I'm not what the numbers are, but it's only the developed nations that use toilet paper, isn't it? I would imagine
so the other nations use like a bidet.
they use their hand, I believe, and they wash their hand.
Okay, I
Sorry,
immediately,
guys.
but I imagine it's probably cultural. I know that.
Well, that's why in India you only use one hand.
Yes.
You don't eat with your left hand, I think, because you
Can
use
we
that.
go back a little bit because I feel like I've missed out when I went away.
I was just saying about toilet paper is only used in the developed world. It's not used in other parts of the world. It's not a
Mhm.
it's a massive product which has a massive environmental impact. And yet, if everybody started using toilet paper, we'd have a severe problem.
Yeah. So yeah, in Asia they have sprays, don't they? They have a little
That's what
special.
you mentioned
Yeah.
that, but in
Yeah.
some countries they use their hand, don't they? And that's why they never do anything with their left hand because that's the hand they use for wiping their bottom.
Unless you're left-handed.
Used to,
But
I
moving
believe.
swiftly on
Yes.
from this,
Right.
before we go any further down this drain,
Okay.
one of the
Go
yeah, absolutely, one of the largest impacts you can have as an individual is to look at your pension.
Mm.
I was waiting for Howard to nod. Simply put, we're living in a capitalist society. Money drives everything.
on.
So if you are with a generic pension fund, somewhere in there is probably an investment in fossil fuels or something equally less sustainable. the greener pension schemes avoid that kind of investment, starve them of capital, and the
So
rest.
this is really hits, doesn't it? Really, because the implications of your pension may mean you get a lower interest rate on the pension.
Not necessarily. The ESG pension funds have been outperforming the market. ESG pension funds are not necessarily the most sustainable, but they do tend to outperform the market, as does most ESG type stuff. The reason why half America don't like it is half America is Republican and it's very oil based.
Yeah.
So that is one example. Another example is a little bit more controversial, and that is your diet. Because I eat chicken. I really happily eat chicken. I try to keep my red meats down. If you're a massive red meat fan, that is not the most sustainable diet in the world. I do not advocate.
This is highly contentious.
Yes, I do not advocate everyone turning into vegans, but a vegan diet is fairly sustainable to say the least.
Well, there's been a massive kickback on the you know, the Beyond Meat situation, and it was funded by the meat industry in the States. So they started calling, they started making advertising campaigns about these Beyond Meats using how they described it. Oh yeah, using the same techniques as when you make pet food. So they started to try and link these synthetic meats with pet food to put people off them.
Well,
And it's been and it's working. It's working.
Beyond Meat have had a terrible year.
Yes.
Their stock price has fallen something like 90%. It's not necessarily because of these particular activities per se, but people are not choosing the vegan option because of their price in this recession crunch type world that we're in, a cost of living crisis. And so they're finding these second choices are uncomfortable for people to make.
And there's also this split, this divide in the future of farming, isn't there, between the Monbiot group, people that support, you know, that George Monbiot is the one that's really championing this idea of fermented food, fermented meats or fermented proteins, and rewilding everything. And of course, the farming people are going, well, no, that's not the way to do it. You know, you can't do that. And there's arguments on both sides. But the problem is the majority of beef in the world is high input farm. It's not the, you know, the majority is not this beautiful thing of a cow wandering around in a field. There are.
But one of the challenges is and Howard, you can happily back me up or reject this. Here's there is no planet B. But if you look at the stats, if you're going to eat, say, beef, so it's a cattle, it's a cow. The amount of feed the cow has in terms of just generic feedstuffs could have fed 3 or 4 humans. I don't know the stats.
Not if it's grass. If it's a grass-fed cow, no.
Yeah.
The footprint though for a cow for water and feedstock and bedding it's ridiculous. I've got a graph on it somewhere, but like the carbon footprint to get for 100 grams is and the water footprint is ridiculous. But what that tends to do is that, you know, the ones at the lower end, they're not as they don't sustain you as well. And part of that is down to the fact that our bodies have become conditioned to require the drug that is meat. If you taking you off it, your body is used to it. It's an addiction of sorts, right? So quite a lot of the time when people say that they want to reduce their meat content or they went vegan for a month, it was difficult. The reason why it's difficult is because the body was saying, hey, give me the meat that I've been eating for the last 25, 30 years or whatever it is. You get into that predisposition. Your microbiome literally is saying we don't function properly unless we've got meat. So the idea of slowly reducing it is good.
Yeah, and on that subject, because food and sort of foodstuffs have become such a commodity, it's becoming more of an industry than agriculture. So you have battery hens, you have horrendous farms that you see in South America. There was some footage recently of a methane explosion at a beef thing. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific.
What was this a pit or something that had gone up? Was this a slurry pit or something?
You want to take it from here?
Oh, go for it. I can't begin to describe it, if I'm really honest.
The footage I saw was from a big distance, but there was a methane explosion, and that I can't remember the stats, but I think it was 10,000 cattle died instantly. It was just horrendous. But the cattle that you're getting on these intensive farming things, they're so thin and frail anyway. It's just, should we move on to the next subject before we...
Yeah, that sounds like a cracking idea.
Exactly. Transport, which we've discussed before, but a simple decision about how you travel. Take Paul, you're a great example. You traveled by train a few Thursdays ago, depending on when this goes out. And you didn't travel by car. How did it feel?
I travelled down from Scotland down to London on the night train. I have to say, I have a bony bum, and those seats are not comfortable. And I was too late to get a cabin and stuff, so I ended up on a chair. But it was comfortable enough, and the time passed quickly, and I did get about 6 hours sleep, so it was no problem. And then the transport over to Bath from Milton Keynes was really funny. But Christopher, I had 2 disabled people with me, and it was just really funny. It was just like one of those things. We're going to write songs about this epic quest. It was getting across London. So it was a laugh. I say catering on the trains is something you need to consider if you're going to do that, because you don't want to eat their food.
What then sort of comes to the fore is the fact that the time investment that is required to be able to do all of that. So it's the freedom of being able to take a car versus the rigid timetable structure of taking public transport to get from A to B.
Yeah, it was a 12 or 14-hour journey from Bath back to Forest on that day. And I could have flown it. I guess I could have flown to Bristol in an hour and a half, and I could have been home,
Yeah.
So there you go.
But even so, if you'd flown to Bristol and even with the check-ins, let's be clear, there's another 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it would have been 4 or 5 hours with flying, but still, it would have been.
What do you both think of the French rule of no flight internally for 2 hours?
I'm kind of a big fan. I think that people need to get used to the pain.
I think we need to invest properly in the railway services if we're going to do that. I don't think you can, and obviously at the current moment, 66% of the railway services is funded by the government, and then 20% of anything is paid to shareholders. So the whole system is completely wrong at the moment. It's not actually working in our favour.
Are we advocating a bit of nationalisation?
I don't know what we're advocating. We just got to come up with a better solution. I mean, I'm not sure.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Investing in the system. If you look, I mean, I assume you've both had holidays in France.
Yes.
Not for years, but yes, I know what you mean.
Their rail system is just amazing.
Go to Switzerland. Their rail system is like, I worked there for a few months, and they basically, if the train was late, they apologize. Like even a minute, like they're on we're really sorry that we've let down the national pride. This is going to be late, and we're very sorry. It's like in the UK, if the train turns up, great, ever.
Yeah, unless you happen to know Mick Lynch. I
I
believe someone in the call has actually met him.
I have indeed. Nice guy.
Didn't ask for a selfie though. Didn't
Didn't
happen.
ask for a selfie. Wasn't appropriate.
Do
And my
we
son said to me, "Who's that?"
right, so it's not just air travel that is potentially carbon intensive. Luxury cruises are.
Well, have you seen this new boat they're about to launch in
Oh my
January
God.
2022? It's called the Sea Iconia or something.
Yeah.
It will have 5,000 passengers on this boat and a crew of 3,000. And you look at it, it looks like a theme park on water.
Floating theme park on water. Yeah, it does.
How's it fueled?
Well, obviously, it's fueled by thousands and thousands of tons of fuel oil, I guess.
But do you know what type of fuel?
Well, it's the
Yes,
cheapest, lowest bunker oil they can get hold of, isn't it?
it's the
Bunker oil.
fuel. It's the fuel of the basically it's the fuel of hope for the next generation of children.
And that's
But
why
what is interesting is there's going to be so much oversupply in the cruising fraternity that they're actually worried they're actually going to fill these boats.
Wow.
The price is going to drop on them because because there's so many. I mean, you've got 5,000 on this one boat. How many boats are they building?
I tell you what though, that boat would make a much better home for our illegal for the migrants crossing than what we've currently got.
No, it wouldn't happen to have legionnaires for a start. That's for some. That's one, which is the latest reason they've come off the boat.
Legionnaires.
Yeah, there's been a legionnaires outbreak already.
Who would think that a boxed shipping containers that looks like a poorly constructed raft would have poor hygiene? Who knew?
Or be a fire hazard. Who knew? We're cycling into dystopia here, guys.
Yeah.
So, other reasons we've come up with 3 so far.
Energy. Definitely change your energy supplier. Octopus, any of those green energy suppliers has a huge impact on what you're doing. Less so, but also very, very important, bank accounts. Bank accounts and where they store data, that is also a huge thing. And I think that some of our leading high street banks are less than brilliant. I don't know, Paul, have you got that? There's a little hierarchy of banks that are,
There is, yeah.
Yeah. Do you reckon you could find that, Gav? Because that would be useful.
I
to
reckon.
post in.
Do you want me to bring it up on screen, or
Yes.
he says without actually
Isn't
having.
HSBC at the top of that hierarchy, or is it
I
Barclays?
think
I can't remember.
Barclays are up there as well.
Yeah, it was pretty poor. They're
Um,
pretty poor. So there's some really good banks that, or some banks that do some really good stuff, of which I think the co-op was quite good.
Tridos, isn't Tridos the
Tridos.
best, one of the best?
Tridos is the best one, but they don't have. I don't think they have a particularly good retail arm, a business arm.
What do you think about these banking apps that have popped up, like Monzo? Was it Monzo and a few other ones? Are they any good?
Starling, Tide.
Yes, those.
I don't have any good things to say about Tide.
Dear, bad experience.
Very, very bad experience of Tide.
Okay.
But I'm having quite good fun with Virgin Bank, which is quite good.
So, some years ago, I picked up the book "The Limits to Growth," and that to me is what everything is rolling around. One of the things that there's some lady done some new research on this. She what's her name? I've got it here somewhere.
I love it when you both are researching and leave me on screen to make small talk and look interesting.
You are interesting, Gavin. Not Gavin. God, I got it wrong, haven't I?
I'm happily looking at the things on there. I'll do this later and I'll pay attention more.
Okay. Well, you can do that. I think it's just only one of us should do it.
Her name is her name is Gaia Harrington, and she is now she has basically picked up on the limits to growth and basically reran the numbers on it.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing she was talking about in that limits to growth is that one thing you need to see, it's a system. We are in a system, and we don't seem to recognize that we're locked into the system. And when you look at any system, you have to ask what's the objective of the system? And that's what we need to be asking the people in charge. What is the objective of the system? At the moment, it's profit. But what is the ultimate objective of the system?
Can I add a little, not a caveat, but a little addendum to that?
Mm-hmm.
The system that you're referring to has its basis in economics. Even the original economists, Adam Smith and the guys like that back then, made no assumption about unlimited resources. It's just been allowed to run, and the system that you're referring to is predicated on unlimited resources, and that is a challenge. So you talk about the lady you just mentioned, and then you've got Kate Raworth and the donut economics and planetary boundaries, turning back to an earlier topic. So yes, I wouldn't say it's driven by profit. I would say it's driven by growth, and growth in inverted commas, economic. So everything is driven by the wonderful GDP. And at that point, Howard is going to chip in.
I'm not. I think all this is really it's just it's just the way that we've sort of, where am I going with this? This is the reason that our current financial systems aren't fit for purpose. Fiat currency and debasing and effectively what we've got at the moment. And I'm sure we could. This is probably bigger than the realms of this particular podcast, but effectively, when the government decide that they're going to adjust inflation and move things around, and they decide to release money, they are basically giving a global green light to the equivalent of the Weimar Republic, and all of the governments around the world are doing the same thing. When does how much over 100% of GDP do we have to get before we realise that our currency is worth nothing?
Well, you picked up on inflation there. I mean, we've got this. We gave the Bank of England a tool to fight inflation. It's bloody one-handed clapping, because all you do is put interest rates up, but you don't stop the other side of the equation. If interest rates were capped or interest rates were going up, and you said, and by the way, any company that posts a profit more than this will be taxed. If you tax the higher profits, people who are profiteering, and you put controls in on to stop the expansion of the economy in other places, you'd get inflation under control much faster than waiting for everybody to squeeze with their mortgages.
So the question then comes is, how is this particular piece related to what people can actually do?
No, it's nothing. We've gone off topic because I do that. I do rabbit holes.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to hold you to account, my friend.
Thank you, and I'm pleased that you do.
Thanks.
So,
but let's get back on that rather than me going off on it.
So what other things can people actually do?
They can join local organisations.
Before they join local organisations, can I talk about one thing that is a big irk and a bug for me? Right, water, tap water, turning off taps, not using as much. So this is really interesting. We have a habit, right, and it was picked up by one of my exes that I do. When I go and clean something, I turn on the water full throttle and I put the plate on it and I wash it a little tiny bit, and loads of water comes off my plate and flows down to the sink. And then when I go and put my plate in the dishwasher, there's still the tap going on. Or when I wash my hands, I don't need to actually have the water flowing whilst I've got the soap on my hands. No, I don't need to switch it on yet. Or when I brush my teeth, the tap doesn't need to be on whilst I'm brushing my teeth. There is no benefit to the brushing with the water on. It doesn't help it at all, right? It doesn't make it go faster. You still have to go through that process. That shit has to slow down. You could switch it off. You can choose to have, when you're cleaning your plate, you could choose to have a little bit less of a flow. That saves. We only have 1% of this planet that is drinkable water, and the stuff that we can actually drink as a human is less than 0.25, between 0.25 and 0.5% of water. We are wasting that resource massively. Also, slightly controversial, I also have a 2p rule. Like, I don't flush unless there's been a couple of P's.
Yeah,
fair enough.
On that subject, because immediately, not that specific subject.
What, 2P's?
on the for those people who are watching this from the UK, they're saying, "Oh yeah, but we get plenty of rain. We get plenty of rain in the UK. We're a nice temperate country." Blah blah blah. The rain in the UK falls in the wrong place. The most of the country lives in the southeast. The rain falls in the west or the north. On the Pennines in Scotland, the Cambrian Mountains, on the western side of the country, not in the southeast. Hosepipe bans will appear in the southeast before anywhere else. This has been a problem in the UK for decades. Mm-hmm. I remember great plans like back when Boris Johnson's time about a huge pipeline that was going to take water from the northwest down to the southeast. So if you're living in the UK and you're listening to Howard and thinking doesn't apply here, it does.
Thanks, mate.
And I've silenced everyone. There we go.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it's right.
Water, as you say, that's the problem. There's either not enough or too much, as they've discovered in Norway. Was it this week when they had floods in Norway this week?
I don't know.
There were massive floods in Norway this week, huge floods, and China a couple of weeks ago, where you had like 1 month's rain a day.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
They've had that in Norway, and they had that in Spain a month ago. So we live in changing times of certainly water supply, and
for sure.
I always wondered why houses don't have water tanks, like big ones, or they could actually take in water. Anyway, another conversation.
We're talking about changes that people can make right now. That's a huge one, right? And it's one that can literally save you money on your water rates. It will save you. You're actually saving the planet by saving one of the most scarce resources that we value. It's something that you can implement straight away and have a real effect.
Second thing, or the fourth thing, or the fifth thing,
whatever
thing we're on.
Next one.
Yeah, the next one. Another thing you can do. Either of you keen gardeners?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever considered rewilding your garden?
I mowed less this year. I created an area where I mowed a lot less to allow a lot go wild. So yes, I did.
One of the challenges, obviously, in the UK is we're absolutely kiboshing our biodiversity, and then one specific species that we need lots of are bees. And the standard argument is if we eradicate the bee population, all humans will die within 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Rewilding the garden, give them something they actually want.
Pollinating flowers.
It's quite amazing. I mow erratically, and so I get quite a lot of clover.
You get a different lawnmower.
Fair enough. I get quite a lot of clover form on the lawn, and then I go out there in the evening, and it is a mass of bees over the clover. They really love it. So it's like quite fascinating to just sit there and just listen to the bees buzzing around the clover. And I have to cut it eventually because everything starts going a bit crazy. But it is interesting. What I was thinking about is the idea about joining organisations. Is that it's quite hard to be in this conversation on your own.
Yes.
It's like, this is tough, and it's also and the media and the news is decked against us in this. It's like 100 new oil licenses last week from our beloved leader, who's decided it's a good idea to max out the North Sea. And it's like, it's not right, and everyone has come out against that. And for ordinary people just looking at that and seeing that and going, well, it's all right for him to get on a plane and then go back to home and get out to go fly.
Most flown prime minister ever.
I know. Flew private jet from London to Aberdeen to make the announcement for 2 hours, and then flew back again and got on a plane to California.
So on the subject, there's 100 licenses. Howard and myself will now go to town. I'll start first. You can deal with the family investment argument that has come to light. The statement that 100 licenses is not incompatible with net zero is jaw-dropping in stupidity, common sense, unbelievable. Point number one. Point number two, Howard.
How can we have what's his name? The guy, the secretary that granted it. It's not Gavin Williamson. Jerrick. Robert Jerrick? Yeah. Jenrick. So he said that it's better for our carbon footprint as a country. But we export 80% of our oil and we actually import 80% of our oil and gas. So that is a non-starter as a topic, as a point of why we can do it. In addition to that, I'd just like to think about what we're seeing, and I think we see it quite a lot more with these floods and the crops dying, etc. It's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio, and just by saying that, and then being upset by the Just Stop Oil protesters, which I can understand is a little bit of an inconvenience, but it'd be much less of an inconvenience if your car was being pushed down the street with 1,000 other cars because there's a giant flood that's just invaded your town.
But it's hard to connect the two, isn't it?
Next point from me. Building on one of Howard's points, the argument was made for the 100 licenses was to provide the UK with energy security, and we wouldn't have to import oil and gas from these awful rogue nations, meaning Russia. We were importing less than 2%.
Yeah.
So that argument falls flat. The point I was making, that I was hoping Howard was going to do because it's controversial. Mr. Sunak's lovely wife, her father owns a large company that 3 months before the announcements got $1 billion contract from BP. I could stop there.
But they're not connected, of course.
Because it's his wife. He not declared. Well, sorry, it's not his wife. It's his father-in-law, of which she has shares in that company. Well,
which brings us back to this conversation about what can people do, because this is a fundamental problem in politics. This is a problem that our leaders are not fit for purpose.
Yes. Can I just make a point on that? There is a fantastic article by 181 Street, which I'll circulate and we'll put it up in the comments on YouTube. Neither of the big parties will complain about these licenses because the oil industry is in areas, they're in deprived areas, and so if Labour want to win a majority, they can't complain because they'll lose these seats, because the Conservatives will just turn around and say, look at them, they're not pro-oil. And that is a challenge. And it's much better explained in the article than I could ever do.
Well, that was, I mean, the meeting was with Douglas Ross, who's my local MP, and he was there talking about about how it's jobs for Scotland. And you can't argue jobs for Scotland. No one's going to criticise him for that.
Until you consider it's not a binary decision. It's not, do we do the oil? Don't we do the oil? Because if we don't do the oil, what do we do instead? So that option expands, and it's a green technology. We can look at other green technologies. Now, someone is saying that we're reaching to capacity and we'll never get full capacity by replacing oil with wind and solar. But there are other alternatives that they're looking at carbon capture. Not you, the other one.
Yes, they went to visit that plant, didn't they? Which they closed down some years ago. They went back to visit it.
Yeah, the other
20
one,
billion are going to contribute to that.
yeah, there's a great video done by an Australian about how effective that form of carbon capture is, and it's just not. So there's that. Has anyone spotted we're an island? As yet, we have yet to harness tidal power. That still remains a huge potential for the UK. But
And it's a challenging technology, tidal power,
it's a challenging technology until you realise that the economics of the situation and the perilous state the world is in. Is it now is it now a challenging technology, or is it something that we have to solve?
Yeah. So my point I would add to this is don't be on your own with this, because I don't be on your own with this, because so I would add, we there is so much negativity in the news because it's being fed to us to the point to try and get us from my personal opinion, it's about trying to get us to give up. It's like there's no option, we can't do anything about this, and we might as well just accept it. That's what I think is being pushed, and it's the epitome of that was I had an altercation, shall we say, on LinkedIn, as I do with various people in certain things, and this is what the reply I got back from this guy.
With whose name you'll delete out during
I will do. Yeah, I should delete that before. But as humans, we cannot affect global climate. We cannot change it. We have to adapt and forecast. And this book that's just been released with 1,500 scientists, including Nobel Prize winners, that say climate change is bollocks. When you actually dig into this book, they're not even scientists. They're hairdressers or something. It's just like the desperation to try and keep
this went round about a year or so ago. It was like some opinionated Australian finfish farmer that doesn't like some guy that hates anything to do with anything.
I hadn't seen it before. I've
seen it a couple before.
You have. I hadn't seen it before. And
there are a number of scientists that will argue against climate change. When you dig a little bit deeper, they come from certain academic places which happen to have funding arrangements with fossil fuel organizations or fossil fuel linked individuals. Can I come back to your point though, Paul? On the list of things that people can do, communicate and talk about things is near the top. The more and more people that get involved, the stronger the voice will be. We're already at, and we've been holding steady at 80, 75, 80% of the population is slightly worried or very worried about climate change. That's some reason that 20% is voting Conservative. No, didn't say that. That 20% is just holding their ground and not recognizing it. The issue of climate denial is, as you said, is beginning to go away. Their narrative is now changing, which is we can't affect it, ignore it, we'll adapt. When you've got, I had this conversation with someone else today, Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of my all-time heroes, as you can imagine, Howard, it has said on his TV program, it was a quote from his daughter, that climate change has beneficial effects because, and I hope you're both sitting comfortably and you're sitting comfortably at home, the number of people in the UK getting colds has dropped. Exactly, Howard. Precisely.
Wow.
So, if you've got that argument,
I think just to sort of summarize it and sort of bring this to because that was quite dark and upset, quite negative. But actually, to summarize the points there are individual actions that we can take, right?
Yes.
So they're going to take they take a lot of, I guess, concentration and focus, because quite a lot of our actions we do through going about our daily practices that we don't even realize. I had it the other day where I was literally just about to jump into the car to go pick something up from the shop. I'm like, I don't have any appointments next. I can walk to the shop. It's only a 10-minute drive. It happens to us all. The little actions like changing your water, habits, and looking at things such as your energy supply, walking, and your pensions. Well, actually, they require just a conscious effort of a fixed amount of time. And the idea about having decent conversations is that actually, if this was something to do with racism, and you saw racism happening out on the street, and there was a lot of people, do you watch it, or do you call it out? Do you try to make the stand that says the right thing? I think most people would want to do that, but they just need different ways to be able to execute their ideas. And by having conversations like this and having ideas like this, actually, these are not even our ideas. These are just we're just reiterating points that that we know work. Doing that actually has an impact. So if you want to take action, set aside some time. Right, change where your pension's coming from, change where your energy supply's coming from. If you've still got a bit of time, walk to the shop.
I really think there's a value in connecting with people of similar mind on this. There was a group. Well, okay. I'll share my screen here. There's this one here, which was a national group, which was organised by the government, by the House of Commons. Can you see that? All right. Which is the Climate Assembly UK. I think that may have been wound up at this point. I'm not sure they're still going. But there are climate assemblies around the country where you can go and meet and talk to people on this stuff. And there's one in Murray, so I will be going to that one on the 31st of August.
Do you know Adam from Small 99 does People Planet Pint?
He does, yes.
That's something you can get involved in.
And so there are.
Yeah, there's now an acceptable, not alternative because it's from the same stable, People Planet Pastry.
Yes, we have a little sit down, a little snack.
Yeah, and I think that sort of thing is where the conversations need to go, because then we can start changing narratives. When you're talking to people around there, you can actually realize that we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
And it will take political change probably to make this happen. As you said, Labour have a problem. They can't go against some of these things because it doesn't fit. So the question is...
Not initially, although the latest forecast gave the Conservatives 90 seats. So
who knows?
Who knows?
On that wonderful news, I think we should be starting to give it a little bit of a wrap up, because we've covered our point.
I have. That's what I was trying to do. So I think
sorry, I thought you...
No, carry on. You can wrap it up. You're good at this also, better than I am.
Can I just make one other final point, which is, as well as People Planet Pint and People Planet Pastry, people can also connect with the three of us.
Oh, that'd be nice. Some conversations.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The other two are great guys. I mean, I'm not sure about me, but the other guys are great guys to talk to.
I'd just like to point out that our online personalities are slightly different from what you see here. Honestly.
No, I'm the same.
There's Howard there.
He's just gone. What happened there? Oh, he's got things going on. Anyway, I better wait for him to come back, haven't we?
You can say goodbye without Tim.
No, I can't really. It's all right. I don't want to say goodbye.
You might get emotional.
I was going to get all emotional. I thought you'd left us.
I'm back. No, sorry. You're going to have to cut that out. I just had a call about my... Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, so thank you so much for your wisdom on this, guys. It's been a lovely connecting back with you again after a little bit of a break. And, as always, please, as Gavin says, reach out to us. Let's have a conversation, because that's what we do.